it's time to get really refocused. It's time to get excited. We've got week 16. We're going to double down. We're going to win this one. Let's start with the quarterback position. Who is a must start for this weekend?
And this is low-hanging fruit, but I mean, there's 4 teams left in every league right now, right? So you don't want to get cute. And I'm going with Justin Herbert, who, of course, is one of the top quarterbacks in fantasy football. But here's a weird stat. The Texans have actually been tough on quarterbacks lately. They've allowed an average of 12.1 fantasy points per game to the position since week 9. I still say that this is a pretty good matchup for Justin Herbert. He is mostly matchup proof, and I still don't think the Texans have a great defense. In fact, I know they don't. They've also allowed 19 plus fantasy points to 6 different quarterbacks this season. So Justin Herbert is obviously a very good play. And I'm going to go on a limb here with Russell Wilson. Now, I told you last week that he's really bad on the road against the Rams. And on Tuesday night, he was really bad on the road against the Rams. But now he's back home. He's playing the Bears. Since week 9, their defense has allowed the 3rd most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. And 6 quarterbacks this year have scored 23 plus fantasy points against them. So I get it. Russell was awful last week. That was to be expected. I would start him this week against Chicago. I also like Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow against the Ravens.
All right, who are we sitting at the position? Looks like you got a couple guys here that we might be tempted to start because of their rushing upside, but you say be cautious.
Yeah, this is certainly more of a beware than a must sit. Now, Cam Newton's coming off a big game. Like, I get it. He had 23.3 fantasy points against the Bills, and Cam will pop from time to time. I just don't love the matchup this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, their defense has given up big stat lines to Josh Allen and Carson Wentz in recent weeks, but those are the lone quarterbacks who have scored more than 15.7 fantasy points against them since week 9. So I would fade Cam. And then I've got Taysom Hill on this list, right? And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, mobile quarterback. And I like Taysom Hill. Don't get me wrong. Last week, I get it. He had a stinker. It was awful. But that was sort of how the game planned out there with the Buccaneers losing guys and the Saints basically controlling the time of possession. This is a bad matchup against Miami. Okay, and here's why. Their defense has held mobile quarterbacks like Cam Newton, like Lamar Jackson, and like Josh Allen to fewer than 18 fantasy points in games this season. Now, Allen had 1 big game against them and 1 bad game against them. So keep that in mind. At risk for me is Taysom Hill having to throw the ball a little bit more because Miami's defense, again, has been very tough on mobile quarterbacks. So if you start them, I would temper expectations. I also don't like Tua Tagovailoa in that game and Derek Carr going up against the Denver Broncos.